Welcome to Hawaiian IANDS. I'm Shaun Lether. I am thrilled to welcome our very special guest, Dr. P.M.H. Atwater. In 1977, P.M.H. died 3 times in 3 months. During her third near-death experience, she heard the voice like no other, which led her on a 46-year journey to establish that the near-death phenomenon is not some kind of anomaly, but it is rather a larger genre, part of a larger genre of transformations of consciousness. Her years of near-death research, personal experiences, experiments, as well as researching altered states of consciousness, mysticism, psychic phenomena, and the transformational process has led us all to a greater understanding of spiritually transformative experiences. P.M.H. is the author of 19 books, including the Big Book of Near-Death Experiences, The Ultimate Guide to NDEs and Its After Effects, which is a must for anyone interested in NDEs. Today, we're here to talk about and celebrate her latest book, Edgewalker, which is a combination memoir and autobiography. You can learn more about PMH by going to her website, pmhatwater.com, as well as sign up for her newsletter, and the links are below. Welcome, PMH.
Well, yeah. Everybody, hi.
I am so honored to have you here.
Oh, it's a thrill. It's a thrill to be here with everybody. This is good.
Yeah. So most everybody knows who you are, but there are so many more people, as you know, having near-death experiences and spiritually transformative experiences. One of my Facebook groups is growing by like thousands a day. So there's a whole new generation that don't know who you are, but desperately will benefit from your research and your experiences. So maybe you could tell everybody a little about yourself, where you came from, and about your 3 NDEs, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Could my picture be larger?
Yes. I'm giving you full screen.
You are?
Yes.
Well, it hasn't happened yet. All I have is a little bitty screen.
There you, oh, so you need to go to view up at the top right.
I
go to view and then click speaker.
Oh, okay.
Now, do you see yourself full?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, gee, where do I begin? Well, in my book, Edgewalker, I begin with my birth. I really did. Because my birth was very strange. And I've had a very strange life, 5 fathers, 2 mothers. Grew up with Pearl Harbor, Hitler, the Goose Steppers, death everywhere. Death everywhere. And that's how I grew up. And the first grade, I was the only one there in the first grade who could smell colors and see numbers. Everything was backward for me. I had synesthesia. I was born with synesthesia, which means it's an elaboration of the limbic system in the brain where your faculties are functioned a little differently. And that, by the way, is one of the after effects of a near-death experience. So if you see things and feel things differently, please know that's part of a near-death experience. But I was born that way. So I grew up very, very different. Let me just quickly say that back in Boise, Idaho, I was born in Twin Falls, Idaho, lived most of my life in Boise, Idaho, the capital city. And it seemed necessary that I make some kind of way that the general public could see good psychic material, metaphysical material, not the crap that was out. And so I went around, I really did. I went around to all the churches in town, told them what I was doing, and asked them for their help. And they did. I did not have a single church that was against inner form. I began inner form, which eventually became Idaho's first nonprofit metaphysical corporation. I was a hypnotist. I was doing everything, stage work, you name it, I was doing it. And the day finally came when I'd had enough. I'd had enough. Oh, well over 3,000 people, just all kinds of everything. And so I decided to become a bank manager. Yes, I did. I decided to become a bank manager. And so I was actively involved in that. I was taking classes. And one particular night, I was still having little meetings in my home Friday nights. And one particular Friday night, this guy from California who was doing a job in Boise, and he'd fly back and forth between California and Boise. He wanted to teach everybody a new way of steeping tea. Can you imagine that? And he didn't come and didn't come and didn't come. So I went to bed. I have 3 children. My son was gone, but the 2 girls were still at home. My oldest daughter woke me up maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning and said, this guy was at the door. And he, so I got up, I went to the door. He was erratic. I could see something had happened to this man. He couldn't think straight. So there were a lot of bedrooms in the house. I said, go to this bedroom. That'll be fine. You can sleep there until morning, and then, you can leave. So I went to my bedroom, never thought a thing about it. I'm a heavy sleeper. I'm a cop's kid. My mother finally settled down with a police officer. And, I grew up in the police station. I really did. In those days, you could do that. So I grew up in the police station. So, I knew that kind of life. And, the man picked my bed in my bedroom later, and he raped me. And then he left. And what do you do? I did not know what to do. I just laid there. I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything. I just laid there. And about a month later, found out I was pregnant. What do you do when you find out you're pregnant and you're maybe in your late 30s, early 40s, and you're starting a new career? What do you do? I gave it to God. I didn't know what else to do, so I gave it to God. And I had a miscarriage. And that miscarriage led to more and more pain and more problems. And it was because of the miscarriage that I had that I went through what I went through. My first death was January 2, 1977. Second one was January 4. The third one was March 29. The first time I died, I just had this rush to go to the bathroom. I miscarried the baby in the bathroom, in the toilet, and suddenly I'm up with a light bulb room. My light was a light bulb, and I kept bumping into the light bulb over and over again. I don't know what happened to my view, but suddenly it changed. Well, anyway, I'm back.
You're back. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but that's all right.
You're back.
Yes, I'm back. And suddenly I'm up with a bathroom light. And there were these blobs that were floating in the air. The more I thought, the more I screamed, the more blobs there were. And the next thing I knew, and then they were kind of gray and funny looking. I didn't like them. And the next thing I knew, I was snapped back into my body. Like an overstretched rubber band, snapped right back to my toes. I had to shrink to fit back into my body. I was larger outside of my body than I am inside my body. So I had to shrink to fit back. By golly, with one of these experiences, you don't become someone you're not. I'm a neatnik. So the first thing I did was clean up the bathroom, all the blood and everything. And yes, that's just what I did. I cleaned up the bathroom. And then I went to bed, and I found every pillow I could find, and built this huge, almost like a wall of cushions, not quite that big, but almost seemed like it, and propped my legs up, and did the best I could to stop the bleeding, and I went to sleep. Yes, I can sleep anywhere at any time. I'm that kind of individual. So the next morning, my oldest daughter woke me up and said, "Should I call into the office? You're sick." And I said, "Yes, please do." And she did. And the pain just was getting worse and worse. And it finally occurred to me, into my thick head, I need a doctor. So as best I could, I dressed, I got in my car and drove to the doctor's office, which is about maybe 5 blocks from where I lived. It took me a half an hour to drive 5 blocks. Because there was lightning across the windshield, and all of the buildings on either side of the road kept undulating and going up and down and up and down. And I couldn't hardly control the car. And I finally got to the doctor's office and stopped the car and went inside. And the head nurse was there, and she screamed when she saw me. She said, "You look like you're half dead." So she got me in to see the doctor right away. And the first thing he said, after I told him what happened, the first thing he had said to me, "Well, it's just too bad you have to pay this price for having a wonderful time." What? And he gave me a shot in the right thigh vein. And he was holding my file. He knew I couldn't handle that shot, but he gave it to me anyway. He did not send me to the hospital. He sent me home. By the way, the doctor later on was wound up accused of, lost his license and everything. But anyway, wound up back to the house, walked in the door, the bleeding stopped instantly, and I went to bed again, sleeping soundly. The next morning, my oldest daughter woke me up and said, should I call in? You're sick again? I said, sure, go ahead and call the office. And then I was so filled with pain from that leg, my right leg, the right thigh vein. And it just, it was like a lump growing out of my vein. And if I'd have had a knife, I'd have cut my leg off. That's how hard it hurt. That's how much it hurt. And again, my feeling was I needed to see a doctor, but now I couldn't walk. All I could do was crawl. We had a ranch style house. I had to crawl all the way from my bedroom across the living room, the dining room. My only phone in the house was a wall phone in the kitchen. I made it as far as the dining room. And the lump won. I did the worst thing I could have done. I attacked the lump and I kept pounding on it. And of course, it was a huge blood clot. I didn't know that. And bingo, I'm gone. And I float ever so easily and gently out of my body up to another light bulb. Here I am up around the light and viewing the body below. And I wanted to know, am I really, really dead? And so I went down to the body and was there for a while, seeing is there, any breath coming out of the nose, any heaving of anything that would tell me I was alive. Wasn't there. And then I went back up to the ceiling and I was so happy. So happy. That life, I'm through. And I went twirling around the light figure, the light fixture, just twirling around and twirling around. I was so happy I was out of that body. I was so happy I was dead. And I began to notice these kind of blobs that were appearing in the air again, only this time they were translucent and pastel, and they were beautiful. And I looked at those lights and I thought, those little bubbles that were in the air. And I thought, oh, maybe they're my thoughts. And at that, suddenly I'm in the void. The void is total darkness and blackness because the void is nothing. There's nothing in the void except the presence of shimmer. Just the presence of shimmer. Nothing else. And all that ever was and all that ever will be is in the void. And in the void, I chose to create. I wanted to create. I wanted to create a house, a 4-square house with a porch and 3 steps up to the porch and a golden door knob and 4 square, beautiful, beautiful white house trimmed in green. And I remember it feeling a little bit hard to do that. It's like it's like in the winter when you first started skiing and there's that little ache. That's what it felt like. It felt like I was doing something I hadn't done for a long time, and it ached a little bit. But the next thing I knew, there was the house. And I went up and I chomped across and went up and down across the stairs and the little porch and all around the house. And as near as I could tell, that house was real. And then I thought, okay, I want to create, that's inanimate. I want to create something that's animate. So I chose an oak tree, a big, huge, giant oak tree with big roots and huge limbs and lots of greenery. And the next thing I knew, there it was, complete with insect holes in the bark. And it's just like, wow, I can really do this. And then I went on a creation binge. I created a whole city and dogs and cats and trash cans and people and cars and houses and everything you could possibly imagine. And as I did this, the loved ones that had died before, my loved ones, came to visit me, including a grandfather I had never met and never could meet. And he came up and introduced himself to me. And I recognized that some of the characteristics I have, he has. And it was just wonderful to see my loved ones again who had died and gone on. And then they left and Jesus came. Yes, Jesus. My elder brother. I knew that Jesus was my elder brother. And I was so excited to see him, and I hugged him and he hugged me, and we joked and we laughed, and it was just wonderful. My elder brother. And then he left. And my loved ones left. And I thought away everything I had created. And suddenly there was blackness, total blackness. And in that blackness, in that darkness, it's like there was a bubbling up in that darkness of everything that I had ever been or was in this lifetime. I could see my past life review. And it went all the way back to babyhood to the present time. And to me, it was hellish in the sense that I could see and hear and know every thought I had ever thought. The effect of those thoughts on everyone who came within my environment, whether I met them or not, even passersby, plus the effect of those thoughts on the ground and the trees and the plants and the air and the total gestalt of my ever having existed in the earth plane. And it was just, whoa. It was too much. I had no idea we were responsible for every thought we ever thought and every word we ever spoke. It's just, wow. Wow. And then suddenly there were sparkles. Sparkles everywhere. Sparklers, almost like on the 4th of July, sparklers everywhere. And I forgave myself. Wasn't somebody else forgiving me? I forgave myself. And in that forgiveness, I floated back into my body. I only had 3 more feet to go to get to the phone. And instead of doing that, I crawled all the way back to my bed and laid there in a stupor for a couple of days. Girls didn't know what to do with me. Believe it or not, the only thing that mattered that got through was money. I had to go to work. That was my only source of money, but my job. So how I got dressed, I don't know. How I got in my car, I don't know. How I ever drove through Boise, Idaho traffic to get to my job, I don't know. I worked for a bank. I was a bank analyst. And they were doing a lot of construction, a new bank, new office. So we were in another kind of place that had no elevator. So I had to walk upstairs to get, to where I worked. When I I fell down as many steps as I made it forward. Finally got to the top of the stairs, and my boss happened to be walking by, and she screamed. She just said, "You look like you're half dead." Like an echo in here, folks. And she got me to a doctor. The doctor, after an examination, his nurse was there. He said, "There is no way you can be alive." But I was. So he prescribed a very powerful drug. He did not send me to a hospital either. He sent me home. I had to take this drug every 6 hours round the clock. I think it was like 7 days. And during that time, he said, "You just, lay across the sofa and watch TV." I never watched any television because all of my past lives paraded. It was almost as if there was like a bridge here, and they paraded across the bridge, all of them, all of my past lives. And it was fascinating. I mean, who loves television when you can watch all your past lives parade by? I mean, wow. And my friends would come over, and I would tell them what was happening, and they did not believe me. During this time, my landlord decided that I had to go. He was selling the house. So I had to somehow find another place to live in another part of town, a place where neither of my daughters liked to be. So with friends' help, I moved there, and I was dragging my right leg. I could not walk properly at all. There was incredible pain. Constant exercise all the time. I had to relearn how to crawl, relearn how to stand, how to walk, tell the difference between left and right, rebuild all my belief systems. I had to start again at the beginning. And it was too much. It was too much. It was too hard, and it was too much. And this man came back who had raped me. It was evening, it was night. And he said, in essence, that he wanted to do something like this because to a woman, because he wanted us to see what it was like that his daughter went through when she was raped. In other words, he was play acting. And I just screamed. He left. I fell against a great big chair and died. And I lifted up through the room and the flooring and the attic and the roof of the house and out into the night light, the night sky. It was very, very much, it was very dark. I did not want to come back at all, ever again. I'd had it. I wanted to leave forever. And I went, the earth was like a little marble as far as I was. And there was a lip of light. It was just a lip of light. And that lip swallowed me. Just sucked me up and swallowed me. And I was in a light-filled world that was beyond light. And in front of me were these whirling vortices, one over the other, sort of like an hourglass shape. And the one spun one way and the one on the bottom spun the other way. And where the two spouts should have touched, they did not. And out of that middle came a power beyond power. And my desire was to go right into that middle, because I knew that would lead me to God, what God was. I wanted to go there. I didn't want to go anywhere else but there. And my son had come. He was on a cruise school in the Atlantic and he didn't like it, and it cost a lot of money. And he'd only been home 2 days, and he was at a bar, passing a few with the guys. And he told me this about a year later, but he was at that bar, Black Angus bar. My son is a great big Taurus, if you even know anything about Taurians. So he was at the proper place for him. And he suddenly put his mug down and said to everybody, "My mother's in trouble. I have to go home and help my mother." So he did. He got in a car and found my body. You have to understand the way we raised our children. We raised our children to always trust the voice within. Always. You go to that voice within before you make a decision. So when he saw my body, he did not go to a telephone. He went within. And that voice, that feeling, that being said, talk to your mother. It doesn't matter what you say, just talk. And I heard him. And I saw and felt and knew that he was giving me unconditional love, totally unconditional love. And I didn't know that was possible on the earth plane, that you could really have unconditional love on the earth plane. So as I was turning to go home, to go back to where my son was, a voice spoke. I call it the voice like none other. And that voice said, and I quote, "Test revelation. You are to do the research. One book for each death." Book number one, I never knew what book number one is. I suspect it was Coming Back to Life, my first major book, but I don't know. Book number two was Future Memory. That voice showed me how to do future memory. Future memory is not a book. If you haven't read it yet, you ought to. It is a labyrinth. Yes, it is a real labyrinth. The purpose of the book, you know, when you start reading, you're entering the labyrinth. And in any labyrinth, you stay on the path. You can't skip read this book, or you'll wonder why I ever wrote such a dumb book. You have to stay on the path. And the purpose of the book is to bring your consciousness up to the next highest level possible for you. Future memory is a brain changer. That's its only purpose. Book number 3 was a manual for developing humans. The word hue, maybe about 1,000, 1,500 years ago, not 1,500, over 1,000 years ago, the word hue was the sound of God. Hue, man was God, man, God, woman. Hue, God. So I was to do a manual for developing humans. How much of us are ever taught how to be a human being? That in school. You may be reading, writing, arithmetic, but you're not taught how to be who you are. And that's what the book is. It's fun and easy. The first part of the book teaches you how to think and teaches you how to speak. For every near-death experiencer out there, I'm telling you, after your experience, the first thing you need to learn after your experience is how to think and how to speak. And that's what this book does. In an easy way, it teaches you how to think and speak, and then it teaches you how to live again. It teaches you what a near-death experience is all about. To become a co-creator with the creator. That's what it's all about. And that's what the book teaches you in easy, fun ways. It's full of thought form drawings. And the voice taught me how to do that, to do the book. It said I was to do the research. I couldn't hardly walk without pain afterward. I mean, what do you do? I'd sit down for meditation and the body'd fall over. Nothing was working. So I took myself out of regular medicine and put myself into the hands of a holistic healer. Dr. William G. Reimer. Best decision I ever made. But I couldn't get well and couldn't get well and couldn't get well. I was still dragging my leg. Things were not working. So some friends of mine decided that what I needed to do, and it was November, early November of 1977. I needed to be trucked up to Seattle, Washington to attend the Mind Miraculous Symposium that was put on in Seattle Center. And so my doctor got up at 4 a.m. Do you know any doctors that get up at 4 a.m? To give me a shot, give me medicine, and I was trucked up. And the first speaker did it, the very first speaker. It was a physicist from Stanford. And his feeling, his knowing was that how do I put this into words? Everything happened at the same time in the same space. That's what he was convinced of, and that's what he felt he could prove through physics. And so he flashed onto that giant screen the eternal now. That's what he called it, the eternal now. And there was exactly what I saw in my third near-death experience. And I jumped up and ran from the auditorium and into the hall, and I was on the floor under a wall sconce. And all I could do was say, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. He saw it too. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. He saw it too. And from that moment, I got well. And the next year, I left Idaho. On the very day I was to receive a bank promotion. And in those days, for a woman to get a bank promotion, I mean, woo! I mean, it's a big deal. It was a Monday morning, and I was to get a bank promotion, and I went in to see my, the head of our department, the analytical department where I worked. And I said to my boss, sorry, I'm quitting. I'm going to chase rainbows. And she said, "Shut up, don't say a word." And that morning at 4 a.m, she'd had this dream where she had to go to the head cashier in the bank and say, "I'm going to have to replace me because she's going to chase rainbows." Oh, on her desk and saying, that isn't fair. You knew before I did. I sold my house. I mean, the kids went elsewhere. And trekked across the United States. I really felt like I'd left the United States when I left Denver, Colorado. United States ended at Denver. And anything east of Denver was in Greece. I couldn't understand the people, the way they thought, the way they spoke. I mean, what is this? This isn't the United States. What is this? And I wound up staying for a while with cousins who lived in Reston, Virginia, and got a job there. And my first talk about my experience, I love this, because my dad was a cop. My dad was a cop. And I often went to the police station when I needed a ride. And when Dad had his coffee breaks, he could take me home. Well, they don't do that now, but they did then. And so I was around police, the detectives, the interrogation room. I was raised in police work. So here I am at the police station, and they had another extra room for, public engagements. So I'm giving my first talk at a police station. And I was talking about my experience, and a woman came up to me with stars in her eyes. And she said, "Oh, I wish something like that would happen to me." And it's like, horror. Absolute horror. You feel this way. You can meditation, you can do this, you can do that, you can go elsewhere. You don't have to die to go through what I went through. And that was the first and last time I ever talked about my experience for decades. My job was to do the research. And from that moment on, I did my job. People came out of the woodwork literally to help me. People like David McKnight. He was a professor, and he would arrange meetings in various colleges and all over Virginia. Then I moved to Roanoke, Virginia. And in Roanoke, I then got a job, whereby I would teach people how to use the newest switchboards in hotels and motels. So my job was anywhere from the Mississippi River east up, north, south. So anywhere and everywhere, they sent me on my job. No kidding. I love this. No kidding. I went. Experiencers. The way it happened. For instance, I would be this one place in Georgia. And so I had some little extra time. I went to the truck stop and, you know, I was just going to be at the truck stop, but, you know, read a little bit, have a little refreshment. And this guy comes up to me. Yeah. He says, anybody sitting next to you? I said, no. Well, can I sit next to you? That's the way he talked. And I, fine. And he puts his elbows on the table, looks at me eyeball to eyeball, and he says, I want you to know I still chase women and I still smoke. But I want you to know all about the time I died. Experience. Here. I mean, Washington, D.C., I'm in a cab. And the guy, his skin was blacker than any human skin could ever be. Same skin that black. And I started staring at the man. And I was ashamed. I mean, how could I do this? And he spun around with a big smile. And he said, you died like I did. I want you to know all about my death. He told me all about his near-death experience. Walking along a street. Just along a street. This woman, she was, I say this, she was troubled. She says, please, please, can I talk to you? Okay. I died and these things happened and I've got to tell people, I've got to tell people what it's like when you die. She's a near-death experience. I finally decided that I must be wearing some kind of sign that said, tell me all about your near-death experience. Because that's the way it was. Year after year after year. For hundreds, even over 1,000 people. And I'm writing everything down and I'm keeping track of everything they said. Just on and on and on and on, didn't quit, on and on and on. And finally, I met my beloved at a Zen meditation meeting. Zen drew us together. And we married 6 weeks later. That was in 1980. We're still married. Oh, yes, indeed. The marriage gets better every year. Better, better. He's my angel. He really is. He's my angel. He's the angel God gave me. Wonderful man. And finally, Ken Ring somehow, Dr. Kenneth Ring, heard what I was doing. Called me on the phone. He was going to a big special meeting with Raymond Moody and a whole bunch of them. And I didn't know near-death. I didn't know any of that. I had met Elizabeth Cooper Ross at O'Hare Airport. She's the one who told me about near-death experiences. I told her mine. She said, "You are a near-death experiencer." That's where I got the title from. Was from Elizabeth, not from Raymond Moody. Never heard of him. Never read the book. It was Elizabeth. And Ken wanted to see my research. He wanted to know what I was doing. So he came to spend the weekend with Terry and I. And I swear we talked all night. And he said, you know more about the near-death experience than anybody else. You got to come up to Connecticut. IANDS. You've got to join. You've got to work with your colleagues. Colleagues. I didn't know I had any colleagues. But I did. I went up there to Storrs, Connecticut, and stayed in on the sofa bed in Ken's cabin. And I was there for about a week, going through IANDS material. And that was the beginning of my work, later my books, on and on and on, all solid research, but written in a fun kind of way or an easy way. If you read any of my books, you know they're not boring. I don't write boring books. And it was Ken Ring who came back into my life 5 years ago. Well, he's always been in my life. We're like buddies. And 5 years ago, he said, look, we know your research, but we want to know you. You need to write your memoir. What a memoir is. What a memoir is. That's why I call it my memoir autobiography, because I don't know what else to call it. And Edgewalker, the many lives and deaths of P.M.H. Atwater. And yes, there were many, and still are. I've always walked on edges. I still do. I was born up about 3/4 of a mile from the edge of Snake River Canyon, huge, giant canyon. Loved canyons ever since. Crawled up and down, these canyon walls. I'm a canyon person. But my life as a child, always death everywhere. Pearl Harbor, World War II, Hitler and the Gestapo, death everywhere. I was raised that way. I became that way. What did it do for me? All of this, it made me more and more curious. It wanted me to do more and more and more, to find out more and more and more. It made me very happy with my life, in the sense that always there are miracles. Always there is wonder. Always there is joy. Even when you're miserable, there's joy. And I've fallen and break a leg. Well, I didn't break it. Almost did. Still joy. When I broke my right wrist trying to catch an airplane, They couldn't operate on it for about 10 days because they couldn't get in an operating room. Finally got in. Finally got it operated on. And all of the steel and everything. And then two years later, they had to take it back out again because I didn't need it anymore. Because after the operation, truly, 6 weeks after the operation, they took an x-ray and it showed as if my bone had never broken. It healed that fast. So 2 years later, they took all the stuff out. I heal quickly. Even when life is miserable, it's joyful. And that's who I am, and that's what I am. And hey, Shaun, that's it. That's me.
Oh my gosh. Every time I talk to you, I am so amazed. Your life is such inspiration to all of us. And to think in 1977, everything that you were going through in Boise and
It was hell on wheels. It was hell on wheels.
Yeah. And you survived all of it. Not only survived, but thrived and have written 19 books and helped so many of us, myself included, as I've mentioned. PMH knows this, but maybe a lot of people don't. After my NDE, when I finally accepted my life was never going to be the same, and I decided to Google after effects of near-death experiences, that's when I first got to learn about PMH and her research. Every little box I checked. And so from then on, I have just, I just cannot express my gratitude to you for all of your hard work and persevering and not giving up. And wow, just absolutely amazing.
I refuse to.
I know, and you've got a lot more books to go, which I will briefly mention, and you can say a little bit more, but then we want to get to some questions.
I have a new research project.
Yes, do you want to tell everybody about that?
Well, remember that voice that spoke to me in 1977. It has not spoken again to me until last year, August. So that's August 22. And really, really early in the morning, like 3:15 in the morning. And it said, you are to do another research project. And I'm going, what? And I'm screaming. No, I've done enough. I've done enough. Really, I've done enough. You ought to do another research project. It gave me the criteria. Those people who have had a near-death experience, either during their experience or within 1 year afterward, have also had an alien experience. I'm not interested in anybody after that. So far, I've found 25. It's very common for near-death experiencers to maybe see UFOs or believe in aliens or be somehow interested in that kind of thing. But for near-death experiencers, either during their actual experience or within 1 year. That's a criteria. Either during their experience or within 1 year. Had an alien experience. Doesn't matter what kind. I am to research those people. And that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that with the hope of doing more and more after all of you help me sell Edgewater. You know, you can't hardly get a PR office anymore, public relations anymore. Your publishers no longer do that anymore, most of them. You go directly to Amazon, get the book, please go to Amazon, get the book, and then go back afterward and you know, write in your opinion of the book, and then you know that gives you numbers. Whether you liked it or didn't like it, go back, and you know that helps you then to sell the book. In the old days, you know, the publishers had PR departments. They don't anymore. So I'm dependent on all of you and your websites and your involvement. If you will please get the book. And yes, please do that. That will be very helpful. And then if you're interested in the alien project, please get involved with that as well. Yes, contact me.
Yes, and I'll be posting more information about the research project, so everyone can sign up. And then I'm putting the link to the book again. And so if everybody wants to start putting your questions in the chat for PMH, the first one that somebody had asked that she has asked everybody and is not getting a satisfactory answer. And her question is, why do some people have near-death experiences and others not?
You didn't need them. I'm convinced the only people who have a near-death experience are people who need one. That's the only reason you have them. Whether it's a good one or a not so good one, you only get what you need. To make a substantial change in your life. So the only people who have them are the people who need them. Period.
Great answer. Sometimes I just say we're a little more stubborn, slower learners.
Some of us need the slap in the face, and some of us don't.
Right, like in Moonstruck, you know, when Cher says "snap out of it." That's
for some people. You can meditate. You can get that kind of change in other circumstances. But some of us need a good bat in the head, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was one of those. I needed
Well, you must be listening because you haven't had any more NDEs since, right?
Oh, I didn't get any more.
Great. Lucky for us. So Jennifer would like to know about psychic abilities. Maybe you could talk about yours.
Look, folks, if you weren't psychic before, you become psychic after. If you were psychic before, you become very psychic after. It goes with the territory. Everybody is faced with that. Some people absolutely turn it down. They don't want anything to do with it. But it goes with the territory. It's part of the experience. Because you're opened in every single way. Some of us can handle it, some of us can't. Some of us have a positive experience, some of us have a negative experience. Some of us go through hell, some of us go through heaven, some of us in between. It's different with different people. But why do we have them? Because we need them. Yeah.
So Shelley wants to know that you said that that some people can have the same experience through meditation. Do you have a kind of meditation that you recommend?
No. There's various kinds of meditation. I've had some very good meditation teachers. Long before I ever died. There's various types of meditation. There's various types of spirituality, various types of experiences we can go through, transformations of consciousness. Yes, there are various types we can go through and have. But some of us just need a 2x4. You know, really, I call my near-death experiences the heavenly sledgehammer effect. Yeah, I needed to be clobbered, and I sure got it. Boy.
Yeah, you did.
Clobbered than ever. Yeah.
Yeah. So
did I wear everybody out?
no, I'm just actually going through the questions. So Crystal wants to know, in your book, Manual for Developing Humans, you recommend keeping an ideals and goals journal. Do you do this regularly?
Not regularly. I do it whenever I have a feeling and need to do so. I used to do it regularly. I don't now. But again, whenever I have a feeling or need to do that, then I do. But in the sense of goal setting, every morning I have that sense of what I'm to do. Every week I have that that overall sense of what that week is for. Every month I have that overall sense of what the month is for. So in that sense, I'm always dealing with goals, because I know my life is now based on movement and accomplishing things and doing things. And I enjoy that. I enjoy it tremendously. Whether it's outside with my plants or inside with cooking, being with my husband, being with friends, doesn't matter. The life is so full that I just enjoy being part of that fullness.
And as you already mentioned, you listen to the voice. You don't need to keep notes because the voice is telling you and you're listening.
No, the voice isn't. Yeah, it's that sense and feeling I have within. It's not a voice. I meditate every morning. And so it's that sense of prayer and your prayer life. And it's during that I have that sense and feeling of what I'm to do that day, or it's guidance. So I'm doing that every morning with meditation. I'm a meditator, but I'm not a long meditator. I'm more of a quick one, but a deep one. And meditation is part of my life.
So in your book, chapter 5 is Be Here Now. Tell me about your relationship with Ram Dass and
Oh, well, you're going back a ways to where I was just a mother with 3 kids and a husband and a working wife. And long before I ever met Terry, long before I ever died. So we're going back to Boise. And very much involved with cooking and canning and raising food and raising kids. And we were in Julia Davis Park, which is one of the bigger main parks in Boise. Boise has several large parks, Morrison Park and then Julia Davis Park. When we were in Julia Davis Park, and it was a Saturday, and my husband and my kids were racing forward, and I had the picnic basket, and I was carrying all the food. And I was walking past, or almost running past, the band shell. And there was one person on the edge of the band shell floor. And it was wearing all white. It was seated in the lotus position. And he was talking about life and what life is for. And what life is. And I stopped and I listened. And he was talking about it in a way that it was spiritual and psychic and open and the totality of life. And I listened to that man and I thought, wow. And there was a little old lady seated in front. There was hardly anybody there, but there was this little old lady in front. And she went up to the band shell after he was talking about what his life was like now. And she kind of, she could hardly see him on the band shell. And she said, I do that every time I crochet. Yeah. I mean, he's a drug taker. He gets all of this stuff from the drugs. And this little old lady said, I do that every time I crochet. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, me too. I don't have to take drugs or do all these fancy things. All I have to do is just live my life. It's part of my life. Just like her, every time I crochet. And I knew at that moment that that would determine the rest of my life, but I couldn't begin now. I had to wait a little bit, but I knew I was headed that way, not the drugs, but what he was really talking about. And of course, that's what led to Inner Forum.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him until after my NDE, and then he died about a year after. Yeah, and he's
an
amazing.
Incredible man.
Yeah, and he later admitted that that everyone could reach that state without drugs, right?
Right.
Yeah. I love that. So what do you think are the biggest misconceptions of near-death experiences? That a lot of people, like, for example, the tunnel, how we were talking, a lot of people think
a third of the people ever experience a tunnel.
What do you say, a third?
Most people do not experience a tunnel. I found 4 different types of near-death experiences, and I talk about it a lot. I call the initial experience. Most children have that, but adults can have it too. It's something like 1 or 2 things happen to you, like maybe you'll have an out-of-body trip, or maybe you'll hear a voice. Very simple. But it changes you in a very intense way. Even though it's simple, maybe it's a quick in and out of body trip, but it changes you in a very significant way. The second one is the unpleasant or hellish experience. 1 out of 7 in my research had a hellish experience, not a heavenly one. Then, of course, there's the heavenly one that we're more, we hear more about. Maybe like something like 48% in my research had that, not even 50%. Then there's the transcended experience. Those people who come back knowing that they have a job to do that will help the human race or society, very specific. So the only ones you get the hellish one or the heavenly one, that's where you get your past life reviews. You don't get it with the initial, you don't get it with the transcendent. You get with the heavenly or hellish, that's where you get your past life reviews.
Hey, help. Hold on, just bear with me a sec. I'm just wanted to remind everybody to make sure that you check out the big book of near-death experiences, because it's really got a boatload of information, and PMH has donated the copyright and all of the funds to IANDS. So it's a great book to check out.
Well, it's literally an encyclopedia of the near-death experience. That's what it is. The big book of near-death experiences gives you everything, the pros and cons and everything. So it's like an encyclopedia. We used to say to everybody, get them and put them in your hospitals, or have your doctors and nurses know about the near-death experience. And the way to do it is to get the big book of near-death experiences. It has everything in it, pros and cons, everything is there. Children, adults, of, this powerful light, the black light, the bright or white light. The near-death experience is not a white light experience. It's a mini light experience. It's a powerful experience. You can have many different lights. I love kids. They're so clear. And they say that the black or dark light experience many times has purple tinges in it. That's mother light. And the white, or maybe it might have gold tinges to it, that's father light. And this powerful, powerful light that doesn't have any special color at all, just pure power, that's God's light. And the mother light and the father light come from God's light.
And that's in the book Forever Angels, right?
That's certainly in that book. It's also in the big book of near-death experiences. It's all over. Some of the drawings of children and adults who have encountered the black light. That's in the book. Yeah.
So if you remember, so did a poem that you published, remember? So has a question. And so you have lived through many wars and killings and all that. What do you think about the brutal dictators, Hitler and others that we've had? And
that was a rough one. That was a rough one because I was troubled. Saturday morning, you would go to the movies on Saturday mornings. It would only cost maybe 13 cents. That's what a movie cost back then. And the movies would always consist of some kind of serial, some kind of cowboy movie, and then the newsreel. And the newsreels would always be about Hitler and the goose steppers and that kind of stuff. And it troubled me that here the cowboys were saving people and helping people, but this Yahoo over in Germany, he was hurting people and destroying things. So I decided that Hitler was evil and that cowboys were good. So I turned away from anything that had to do with Hitler and everything that had to do with cowboys, because they were heroes. And that's how I learned bad from good, really, was from the movies and the serials on Saturday morning.
So what do you think of the state of the world now? What's going on? Do you have, that's kind of the second part of her question. What do you think, or the state of?
Everything is changing. Everything is changing. There isn't anything that's not. And I look at that and our earth itself is changing. We have just learned recently that the spin of the earth has actually accelerated. I did not realize that, but it has. So the earth itself and the people on the earth and the plants and animals and everything is turning. It is changing. And I see in that an opportunity for each and every one of us, if we're willing to take it, to be who fully you really are. And if you are fully and completely who you are, or as near as you can tell, live who you are, then you'll fit. Somehow, some way, you'll fit, either that day or that week, but you'll fit. You'll be part of that change necessary at that moment. Wherever you are, you'll fit.
Beautiful answer. Okay, so I want to ask two final questions. One, many NDEs have electrical sensitivities, and I think you know that more than anybody.
60 to 70% of us do. Yes, you bet.
So how do you deal with it?
Well, you can't wear a watch. Unless it's a solar watch. You can wear solar watches, but not a regular watch. You'll always be having to change the battery if you do. I deal with electrical sensitivity every day of my life. I have altered my office in a way that enables me to deal with it. A lot of plants in here, have a lot of lepidolite. If you can, some people call it lepidolite. That really helps to settle your nerves and your body and helps you to be able to handle changing energies in a very healthy way. So if you can get a hold of some lepidolite. One of the things that will help you more than anything else is any kind of amber. Doesn't have to be, fancy amber. Any kind of amber. Amber cleanses and cleans. That's the purpose of amber. So I have some right here in between my keyboard and my screen is a box of amber. So I have amber all around me all the time. And that will cleanse and clean negative energies. It used to be that we would think that you have to clean out the particular rocks or whatever it is you're using, but amber is self-cleaning. So you can just enjoy the benefit of amber. And upstairs, where I watch television, I have amber in next to me. I have a rocking chair and I have amber.
What was the name of the light that you mentioned? How do you spell that? Somebody wanted to.
Lepidolite?
Yeah, how do you spell that?
That's not a light. That's a rock.
How do you spell it?
L-E-P. Is it I-D-O-L-T-E?
L-E-P-I-D-O.
I talk all about that if you can get a hold of the book, Coming Back to Life. And and then let's see, is it Coming Back to Life? Where I talk about what you can do in your life right now to make a difference in your life. Pardon me. I'm looking. Yeah, get a hold of coming back to life. That it gives you a lot of tips on what you can do. I believe I talk about it in that book. My second one that came out, Beyond the Light, it might have that in it too, where I give what you can do. So by all means, get a hold of either Coming Back to Life or Beyond the Light. Oops, wrong book. And I give specifics on various rocks, various energies that can make a big difference in your life. Absolutely, big difference in your life.
So if is there, what would you say is the number one, if there is one, way of integrating or grounding after an NDE? Is there a top recommendation that you have? Because you sat there and you went through it. I mean, I just picture you back there in 1977 going through this all with no guidebook that, you know, but you've created so many helpful tips. So what do you think is there a number one thing that you did that you could say that?
I don't think there's a number one. Certainly meditation made a difference for me. For me, learning to love my body made a huge difference. Blessing the body I wear. And realizing that that body is beautiful. That body is God's body. That body is my body. That body is beautiful, and I love my body. And learning how easily you can handle weight. You can handle weight in a way that helps you to feel better about yourself. Get the manual, a manual for developing humans. Will help you better than any other book or class or teaching that I could ever give you. A manual for developing humans is just that. It will help you to be who you are. And who you are is a child of God. If you don't want to use the word G-O-D, that's fine. Who you are is a child of the universe.
Beautiful.
Know your power, feel your power. Love your power, use your power. One of the best things you can do if you're ever mixed up and in a hurry or life seems confusing is to stop right where you are Stand straight, arms down at your sides. Just stop. Swallow. That's all you do is stop. Swallow. The act of swallowing when you're stopped enables the synapse in your brain to unwind and work more easily and effortlessly. It's all you did. A lot of these tips are in the manual, a manual for developing humans. I kid you not. That's the best place to go if you want tips, you want ideas, including an acupressure facelift. That's in the manual. Yeah.
So everybody get that book. So I do have two more questions now. Somebody, Daryl actually put a really good question. Why do you think so many NDEers have the need when we come back, to share our story, to write a book? It's almost as if.
Sure. It's what we call the rooftop experience. You want to stand on the tallest roof you can find, and you want to say, God is, death isn't. Of course, everybody thinks you're nuts. And you learn then to sort of pipe it down. And you learn then that living it is a lot better than talking about it. But that's the first thing you want to do after near-death experiences. You want to tell everybody about it. And people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Let's see, I wrote a wonderful little book about that. What's the name of it? It has to do with God. Don't know where that book is right now. And then the name of that book is not coming to me. If I could get on my computer real fast, I'd get the book for you. But you'll absolutely love it. Love it if you can get all of that book. It had, and I'm sorry, it's just not coming to me.
I put the link to your author page with all your books. Yeah, so somebody can find. You said it's got God in the title?
The main title does not have God in it. It's a secondary title.
I put it in the chat.
Okay. Sorry, I can't.
Dying to Know You, Proof of God in the
Know you.
Near-Death Experience.
That's dying to know
Thank you, Kathy.
Dying to know you. Absolutely. You'll love that book. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's, I want to ask you, I think what so many people want to know is, because you're listening to your guidance system, what's your biggest recommendations that you can give to everybody here to hear their guidance system, trust it, and what's your advice? You've kind of given it a few times, I think.
Well, certainly meditation. That helps me in the morning. I'm talking to God all day.
Yeah.
Off and
Right, but
on.
how do we hear them? You know what, I think you actually, when you said stop and swallow, I think if we just stop and listen, right?
If you just be who you are. If you just allow yourself to be who you are. Like for instance, in dishes, there's no way I will ever use a dishwasher. I think they're stupid. I wash my own dishes myself with my little hands, and you know, you've got the double sink, and I'm playing with bubbles. That's why I love to do my own dishes. I'll play with the bubbles and blow them around. And there's something holy and wonderful about touching and the warm water and blowing bubbles. It's wonderful. I can't imagine using a dishwasher. How stupid to use a dishwasher. All that power that you use, and I want to be who I am at every moment of the day. I'm not always successful in doing that, but most of the time I am. I want to be who I am. I don't want to be somebody else. Because who I am is a child of God. Who I am is an incredible being like you are. All of us. We're incredible, beautiful children. All of us are. Can we ever put up with being anything else? Be who you are. If there is ever a mantra for near-death experiences, it is be who you are. That's all.
That says it all. That is perfect.
Be who you are. You are a child of God. Be who you are.
Oh, wow. That is perfect closing. I can't even imagine something more perfect. So everybody, if you go to PMH's website, pmhatwater.com, and then you can email her, put in the subject line, if you, whatever you want to put in the subject line, but if you want to be part of the UFO study, put that in there.
Don't forget my free monthly newsletter.
Oh, right. Yeah. And I put the link for everybody to
www.pmhatwater.com and go right over to newsletter. There's an archive there. You can look over whether or not you really want the newsletter, but sign up for the newsletter. It comes out every month, and it's just a fun, wonderful newsletter.
We'll have tons of information from all over. Yeah. So I want to thank you again. I absolutely love doing this, and for your 20th book, make sure that we do this again. You've got a lot more books in you, and
I have a lot more, but I certainly have 2 more that I know.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And I want to thank Kathy and Catherine and Jack for helping keep it all together. And we will see you all hopefully on the 20th for the sharing group. And with that, everyone have a wonderful night. Aloha. See you all soon. Love you all.
Enjoy who you are.
Yes.
You are wonderful.